Hello, men, women, boys, girls, and those who identify as non-binary. How are you doing today? This is a video about Pokken Tournament 2, and how I think they could make Pokken Tournament 2 a success, because the first one was a good game, didn't get marketed very well, and right now it's not at the best phase in its life ever. But we can do better. The way I think that they could make Pokken Tournament 2 a success would be to include rollback netcode. Have you heard of it? Well, let me explain what it is. There are two main types of netcode in multiplayer fighting games: delay-based netcode and rollback netcode. Delay-based netcode is pretty self-explanatory, pretty intuitive. It will delay the input of your opponent for a certain number of frames, and then that many frames later, you and your opponent will see it on each of your screens at the same time. That's how a lot of multiplayer matchmaking works right now. For reference, Pokken Tournament right now uses a 7-frame delay. So you hit a button, and then 7 frames later, it will pop up on your screen as well as your opponent's at the same time. Now this is great, but internet and Wi-Fi are unstable at the best of times. So there will be times that it takes more than those 7 frames or 4 frames, 5 frames, however much the developer chose, before the input from your opponent gets to you, or vice versa. If you've played fighting games online, I'm sure you've seen gameplay that looks more like a slideshow than a video game, and that's never fun. Rollback netcode works by never freezing your game or delaying your inputs by more than a few frames. Rollback netcode actually makes use of delay-based netcode for the first 2-ish frames, 2 to 4-ish frames, depending on how bad the lag is, where if the input is received in that much time, it works just like in delay-based netcode. It takes 4 frames to move over, then both people see it at the same time. Perfect. However, if the input is not received in those 2 to 4 frames, the game, instead of freezing entirely and forcing you to wait for the input to be received, it will guess what your character was going to do based on what it was doing. So, if you were guarding, your opponent will see you continue to guard for a few frames, even if you let go of your block button. Now, this works the vast majority of the time. I think I've heard 90% of the time, if the game guesses that you're blocking when you're blocking, it's gonna be right. It doesn't take a genius to guess that if you're blocking a 60th of a second ago, the next 60th of a second, you're probably gonna be blocking again. That makes sense. So about 90% of the time, rollback netcode is just going to work perfectly, where the game will guess what you're going to do and your opponent will see that, and it will work out with only a 2 to 4 frame delay and be far better than delay-based netcode. Well, you may ask, what happens if the game guesses incorrectly? Well, in that case, after the 2 to 4 frame delay, the game will guess what you're doing, it'll keep you blocking or something like that, and then if it's wrong, on your screen, you will continue to act as if the game is basically offline. Your character will keep updating perfectly with you. On your opponent's screen, what will happen is that your opponent will still continue to see you blocking or doing whatever it was that it guessed that you would be doing, and then it will roll back, which is why it's called that. Which means that your character will kind of teleport into the position it's supposed to be, the position that it is on your screen where everything's working perfectly. So while on your opponent's screen they were blocking for too long, they'll teleport out of the block animation and start doing a move. Realistically, it's going to be a lot less than that. Instead of teleporting out of their block animation, they'll teleport out of the first 4 frames of the block animation, because dropping block takes a few frames in a lot of fighting games. So in practice, it can look like this. Your character is blocking, the internet lags out slightly, so the game is forced to guess what you're doing and guesses that you continue blocking. But in reality, you dropped guard and counterattacked. Once your input goes through to your opponent, they will see your character teleport very slightly into the position they are on your screen, which never had any hiccups. As Ars Technica puts it in their article here, ultimately, delay-based solutions fail to provide a good user experience because, unlike offline play, player inputs are not consistent or responsive. Fighting game players thrive on reproducible and trainable situations that are tied heavily to reactions and reflexes. If the opponent jumps, I can input my anti-air. If I land this combo starter, I can continue the combo with muscle memory. When I knock my opponent down, I can meaty them with this specific setup. When input delay fluctuates wildly, whether it's between two different matches or even during the same match, which is the worst, fighting game players lose confidence that anything they do will work as expected. And when they are unable to enact the game plan that they know would help them to win, offline play becomes extremely frustrating and often useless. There are many videos and articles which explain this better than me and talk about rollback netcode in a huge variety of games. So I'll link to those in the description. Read those, watch those. There's so many great resources if you're still curious about this topic. Now, for why this would make Pokken Tournament 2 a success. We're finally on to the meat of the video. I'm sorry this took so long. Okay. Rollback netcode has a lot of hype surrounding it right now. The FGC community as a whole is waiting for every new game to announce that they have rollback, because having rollback just makes your game fun to play online, as opposed to other games that don't have rollback netcode. It's a huge difference. If you've ever tried it, if you've felt it, you know that there's a huge difference. So the FGC community would definitely help out Pokken Tournament a lot by being like, wow, this game has rollback. This is a really good looking game that has rollback. I'd love to try this. It'd bring in a lot of hype from the FGC community. And hype from the FGC community is necessary because it is a Pokemon game, so we're always going to have some casual fans that want to play Pokemon because Pokemon, but we want to have the tip-top level competitors stay around because they're the ones that will keep the game alive in the long run. They're the ones that will make the game succeed over years and years and years and have pot bonuses and make Pokken Tournament something that you watch in addition to something that you play. Having good online is especially useful now because there's a pandemic, which means playing offline is all but impossible for a lot of people. Even if Pokken Tournament 2 doesn't come out during the pandemic, and I don't think it will, the pandemic itself has taught people that having crappy online sucks. They know about crappy online, they've seen the slideshows, and they may have probably heard about rollback netcode from a video like this one, or one with a lot more views than mine. So they know how important it is to get your online experience correct. And this would be the first big Nintendo game with rollback netcode, so Nintendo fans in general would want to try it out. They've probably heard the hype about rollback netcode. So we'd be bringing in a lot of new fans to the Pokken Tournament community, not just from the FGC, but from Nintendo as a whole. In fact, a lot of big AAA beautiful fighting games lack rollback netcode at the moment. So if Pokken Tournament were to get rollback netcode soon, before every other fighting game has it, they would blow up, I think. People from every fighting game would be jealous, you know? Like, I have no interest in Killer Instinct, really. I think it's a cool game. Maybe I'll watch it a little bit, but like, it just doesn't pull me in. But I still kind of want to play it just because it has rollback netcode. Like, that's it. Like, I do honestly, genuinely want to play Killer Instinct because it has rollback netcode, and for almost no other reason. Combo breakers are cool, but rollback netcode is a big deal. That's my point. Now, Pokken Tournament, the original, was made with delay-based netcode in mind, which means that what they did to make that work is that they put a 7-frame delay in their game. Now, this is nice for online, but it's not great for offline games. So when you hit a button, you have to wait 7 frames for the move to actually come out in Pokken Tournament, so it makes the controls not feel quite as nice as they could. If they came out instantly, it would feel a lot better. This works nicely because with delay-based netcode, that means if you hit a button, the internet lags a little bit and it takes 7 frames or fewer for the internet connection to stabilize and send your input to the other person, then everything will work perfectly. However, due to that restriction where they had to put a 7-frame delay on it, even offline play doesn't feel as good, because even in offline there's still a 7-frame delay. So if they had rollback netcode and the online felt a lot better because of that, they could reduce the 7-frame delay to something like 2 or 3 frames and make the entire game experience offline and online feel a lot better. And I think Pokken already has so much going for it. The fact that you can play a Pokemon fighting game, which people have dreamt of since Pokemon Red and Blue a million years ago. They've always wanted this, and considering how beautiful the game looks and everything about the game, there's a lot of good things about the game outside of the online, and the online's not super garbage. It actually feels pretty good as compared to something like Smash Ultimate, which makes me very sad in my heart. But yeah, I think that's what I have to say. I think if Pokken Tournament 2 had rollback netcode and comes out in the next couple years, it will be a success, I think for sure. Anyway, my name is Khanpeki. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a dandy day.